Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining this webinar. Uh, I'm always excited to have webinars. I love them, but I'm super excited again about this one because it's with our good friends Volkmar and Sheen from SAP Development, but it's also about a topic that I think is going to be really interesting and will be very a big change and big focus over the next several years, and I think is super empowering for our customers. We're calling it SAP Universal Revenue Recognition, the next evolution in revenue recognition for the cloud. So what I want to do is welcome my guests. Volkmar is on, and Xin Fang. Volkmar and Xin, thank you both for joining so late in the day from Germany.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you as well. Nice to talk to you, Joe.
It's great to talk with you. And I love, by the way, I love your background, Shin, and the picture that you have there. Looks great. So, all right.
Thank you.
Let's dive in. The first thing is we'll come in, we'll talk about, we introduced Volkmar and Shin. They'll introduce themselves a little bit more as we dive in, but you guys all know them as the deep experts and the product owners, if you will, for SAP for revenue recognition. We're going to talk a little bit about what is this idea of Universal RevRec and why did it come about, and then Sheena's going to do a demo so you'll actually get to see the system. It's not just we're not just here to talk, we're here to show you that there's an actual system. Some housekeeping. The session is being recorded, so if you hear something you like and you want to share it with your friends, colleagues, or anybody, please feel free to do so. It will be up off of our website very shortly. In fact, within a couple of hours of the session, it'll be up on the website where you can check it out, and then it will also become part of our YouTube channel. We like it if you ask questions throughout the webinar. So there is a question panel. I will monitor those questions throughout the webinar, and feel free to check that out. We do have a lot of other webinars. As I said, we have over 500 pieces of content on YouTube as well as other webinars. So do check those out. We have some really great stuff that we did previously on EBRR, CBRR, RAR, and a whole ton of subjects related to revenue recognition. So please check those out as well. I think you'll find a lot of great content, and we've had tens of thousands of people really access that content. So use it as a way for you to learn more about SAP and RevRec. You can contact us. You can contact me directly, or you can come to our website, bramasol.com. Always updating new content, new customer stories, new activities that are there. You can check us out in Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple, iTunes, and as I've mentioned, YouTube. We have an extensive channel up on YouTube, but we've done a great job. I think my team's done a great job of creating playlists. And of course, you can create your own playlists and different content there based on your interests. So please feel free again to dive into all of that content and share it with your colleagues and friends. So we're going to talk about Universal RevRec and dive into it a little bit. But the start of this whole discussion, I think, came from, Volkmar, I was recently checking out SAP, as I always check out, and our team checks out the SAP release notes, and we saw this concept a while back of Universal RevRec. I'm really familiar with EBRR, Event-Based Revenue Recognition, CBRR, Contract-Based RevRec, and of course, we all know and love RAR. Is this a new solution from SAP?
Yeah, John, I think you're right. We're probably quite good in creating new names and new capabilities, and probably the next question would have been really Universal RevRec, is that a new solution? And just to avoid any confusion or maybe even excitement, so it is not entirely new. Yeah, it is rather a combination of existing capabilities we have, and you named them, right? Event-based revenue recognition, It's a very strong portfolio. We have, especially in the public cloud, but also growing in on-premise and private cloud. And then you have revenue accounting. And of course, there again, we use different terms in the public cloud. We call it contract-based revenue recognition, but essentially it is the revenue accounting solution. So it is not a new solution. That's something we need to make very clear, but it's rather really the combination into a unified revenue recognition capability.
Oh, that's great. That sounds great. So can you, maybe you can explain that a little further. I know you have some great charts to do that.
Right, and probably what helps is if I just share my one slide. We don't have too many slides, so don't worry. But this is what we have been using for going to market with our revenue recognition portfolio in SAP S/4HANA. That's our key focus. And as you already pointed out, I think key is certainly to support revenue recognition processes. We all know the underlying accounting standards, IFRS 15. There may be also local gaps. So our solution portfolio is not only for and around IFRS 15. We also have to take care of parallel valuation needs, and local gaps are equally important. And also other accounting standards. Very, very often you have touch points. IFRS 16, some customers use that in combination for leasing. You have also the currency handling, which has touch points into this. So all of that, of course, is a driving force for our development teams. And our target is to automate and simplify revenue recognition along the different scenarios. That's quite important to understand, because we understand revenue recognition not necessarily as a standalone solution, which you just feed with events and orders and so on. We try to really stay very close to the different operational scenarios, and you see them at the bottom. That's quite important. So there's quite a variety of different scenarios. It's not only about subscriptions. Of course, if we talk about high-tech subscriptions, is very important, but we have a very strong footprint in project-based scenarios that may be professional services, that may be engineered to order, as in project-based sales. But we do also support sell from stock and service management. And to be fair, all of these scenarios have their own challenges, their own requirements. Yeah, for some scenarios, it's pretty simple, and customers are more looking at the matching principle between costs and revenues around the logistical processes. Incoterms is a topic. If we talk about professional services projects, it's around plan values, real-time reporting, maybe resource-related billing as in time and expense, and so on. And then again, you have subscriptions, of course, with bigger complexities around IFRS 15 and how these recurring revenue and contract streams are handled. And the way we handle this is in the public cloud edition, as well as in the private cloud edition, by two solution portfolios. That is, especially in the public cloud, the so-called event-based revenue recognition. It's a solution which is very tightly integrated both into the operational scenarios like projects, as well as into the accounting. So event-based revenue recognition posts directly, and wherever there's an event, real-time into the Universal Journal. There's no own persistency. It's very straightforward, but nevertheless also supporting quite a variety of different processes and scenarios. Percentage of completion calculation, for instance. Recently, we shipped imminent loss handling scenarios, a lot which is really related to projects. If you look at that picture here, you also see that revenue accounting, of course, plays a role, especially in the on-premise and the private cloud edition. Revenue accounting certainly is a solution which is used by many major customers, especially in the high-tech industry, and it all works well. Yeah, so our idea is we want to provide revenue recognition capabilities as, you could argue, as simple as possible, because if you just have a simple sales process, then probably, you don't need a heavy revenue recognition component. That's what we've seen. Also received this as feedback from customers. But on the other hand, if customers tend towards more complex scenarios, we want to also provide a solution which is as comprehensive as necessary. And this is really where universal revenue recognition comes in. You could argue it's a one-stop experience around revenue recognition. We want to build up on the existing capabilities. We combine these capabilities into where the customer can define, okay, to what level do I need support for my revenue recognition process? And this is really what universal revenue recognition is all about. It's not a new solution. That's why also we don't want to call it SAP universal revenue recognition. It's rather really this unified, this one-stop shop appearance for our customers, where customers can pick and choose to what level they want to take their revenue recognition processes.
Got it. So it sounds more, it sounds like an overall approach or an architecture in a way that allows customers that, as you said, that flexibility. We know certainly in revenue accounting in the private edition, there's all kinds of flexibility about different event-based, time-based, percent of complete. Now you have day type 4 events that allow for things like partial deliveries. I mean, it's super robust, and what Universal RevRec kind of brings that principle, I guess, across the platforms and extends it into public edition as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned Incoterms. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Incoterms. We were just on the phone yesterday morning with someone in a pharmaceutical company that was talking about how do you account for Incoterms and offset both the revenue and the cost, and clearly that's something that revenue accounting is very good at. So
absolutely, yeah. And just talking about this, there's a whole concept, especially in connection with event-based revenue recognition, how these Incoterms handling is done together with our sales component. But again, that's what I mentioned before. This is very not special, but specific to the sell from stock scenario. Yeah, when you go into projects, for instance, we're not talking about Incoterms really, of course, right? And service again has their own challenges. So, and that's exactly what I try to explain. We try to build features along those scenarios, and they could be quite diverse. And bringing it all together gives us the chance then to build on top of these existing capabilities.
Got it. Okay. Well, maybe you can share a little bit. So how does that all work? Can you share some more details on how it comes together?
Right. And this is, again, where maybe another slide may become helpful. And this is a slide you also find in our documentation. So there's a lot of information out now in our user systems for the current release, which is the 2408 release. And you see here a little architectural diagram, how universal revenue recognition works.
Did you move to the next slide? I still have the other one up. Let me see if I need to. Do I need to?
Yeah, Fogma, I suppose you are using a kind of
the revenue recognition.
Yeah. So you see this slide now? High level overview, Universal RevRec?
Not really. Fogma, maybe you can swap the screens, because you are so-called in an extended mode. We see two slides side by side.
Okay.
Right.
I thought I did this.
Yes.
Let me share again.
Okay, that's good. We can still see the slide. Good.
Okay. Oh, wow. That was... Okay. Right. So hopefully you see now the high-level overview Universal RevRec. Is that
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So in our first, you could call it release, as part of the S/4HANA public cloud edition, we offer integration to 3 scenarios. It's sell from stock. Here at the top, we have fixed price customer projects, and then finally you do have service contracts. And the idea is that you need to activate, you need to configure the universal revenue recognition in a way that you activate in general that you can use Universal RevRec. That's currently done through what we call an expert configuration, because we want to get more feedback also from customers. And then following the configuration options we have in EBR, we derive a revenue recognition key. The revenue recognition key describes the rules. So for instance, how do you do revenue recognition? Is it time-based? Is it based on a POC, a percentage of completion method? Is it maybe based on certain events? So all of that is described in this revenue recognition key, together with also how the posting rules happen. And what we do utilize is the EBR component for that. So there's a lot of commonalities which you can simply reuse. You then decide, okay, for this product, for these item categories that describe the processes, you want to derive a revenue recognition key that participates in universal revenue recognition. This is here a little bit described as universal RevRec properly activated. Once that is done, it goes through what you probably know as inbound processing in revenue accounting. So inbound processing is our interface to create then revenue contracts, performance obligations, also do contract combinations. Yeah, so we do have a body. You can also do it manually. So these capabilities are supported. And it also creates the revenue schedule with the deferral items. Based on the standalone selling price, revenues are then cross-allocated between the performance obligations. So essentially all the capabilities you are probably familiar with if you know revenue accounting itself. Right. Now, in summary, we do use here the revenue accounting contract management. This is what I meant. It's a combination, right? We start with the EBR framework. We have added here the revenue accounting component if customers want to activate it for certain scenarios. You can still continue to use EBR standalone. For instance, if you have certain processes where sales order is more standalone, it's not part of a multi-element arrangement, it's not a big deal. You can also continue that way for your running processes. While this is the left-hand side, now let's look at the transactional processes. Of course, that could be also quite dependent on the scenarios. If you have a sales order, usually you would have a goods movement. Goods movement usually takes out the goods from stock and puts that into cost. And that cost posting is the trigger then, as we know it from EBR, to do real-time deferrals or real-time accruals. So that is possible using the same engine we already know and which is quite commonly used, and especially in the public cloud. Same happens with billing. So a billing invoice comes in from SD, and what we do is we take this event, we pick this event up and do a real-time deferral. So while this is a real-time step, the same would happen for activities, cost postings, maybe from projects. We also do have a period end close. And in the context of universal revenue recognition, you would not utilize necessarily the known programs from revenue accounting. There is, again, the period end close capability from EBR enhanced by another period end close job, which does the closing for revenue contracts, as you see here on the left-hand side. So what you used to have, as I think it was in total 3 programs, essentially is cut down to 1 program, which does the period end closing, the balancing of accrued and deferred balance sheet positions, but also in the case of service contracts, for instance, recognize additional revenue at period end. All of that is straight posting into the Universal Journal. There is no subledger anymore. We do utilize the Universal Journal as one source where all the data, all the deferrals, all the accruals are stored, directly attributed with the market segment information, the product sold, and so on. And as a result, also to be queried for all the disclosures you may need around the IFRS 15 process. So you see very clearly, Universal RevRec, in fact, is a combination of our capabilities. We do use the contract management optionally, triggered from what we call here these operational documents, the contracts, the orders, the projects, and then use EBR as the posting engine as used by a lot of customers already in the public cloud. That's the idea around Universal RevRec.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm excited to see that, because as you know, we've gone through sales cycles where customers are having to make choices, right? It's an either or, and now you're presenting a combination, and I guess EBRR is the front end, if you will, let's call it, or the facing to receiving a lot of information, also working through and doing the postings, and it takes advantage of the power of CBRR, or what's really, I guess, the revenue accounting tool in the cloud, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and they are more precisely the contract management, because this is where the magic happens, you could argue, because if you look at multi-element arrangements, you need an engine which comes up with the allocations, the revenue schedule, the spreading, and that is something, where the revenue contract management allows this additional view to your operational documents, right? So if you have sales orders and you combine them with service contracts, then this revenue contract gives you a different view, again, on your revenue data in line with the IFRS 15 standard.
Got it. And to help people understand, it's this combination. So you could have, to help people understand, I could start with a very simple revenue recognition process wherein I have a very simple subscription or a simple sell from stock scenario, but eventually I want to grow, and because of the architecture and the way you've set it up, I now have the option later on, or I can continue to take advantage of contract-based revenue recognition and don't need to set it up, quote unquote, separately. I'm activating it within the context of Universal RevRec. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We need to be, of course, a bit careful, because if you have a running object standalone, right, which has been running for, I don't know, let's take a service contract for a few months, right, you would continue with this object, but then maybe you have additional materials, you want to combine them into this revenue contract, and then you can, in addition, activate for additional materials this new process if you wanted to, and then run it both in parallel. Yes.
Got it. No, that's great. And currently this work, it also gives that flexibility, I assume, to allow customers to use SD and use EB. So, in today's current scenario, if I want to do contract-based revenue recognition, there's a bit of a challenge with SD, right? I mean, we have to use certain processes, but this is now a way to become even more flexible and inclusive using SD and sending that through EBRR.
Yes, absolutely. And you hit a good point. I'm not sure if that came across earlier. So you may wonder, why did we call revenue accounting contract-based revenue recognition in the public cloud? And the main reason is really what you just described. We released revenue accounting only for specific scenarios. That is the BRIM scenarios, conversion invoicing related, because we had an engine already with EBR in place. which was good enough for many customers. For some, of course, the topic of multi-element arrangements came up, right? But the reason why we called it contract-based revenue recognition was simply because indeed the sales scenario was not available in revenue accounting, not because it was not available technically, so technical infrastructure is there, but rather for the go-to-market and how to separate this in a public cloud environment. And yes, with Universal RevRec, we indeed now have the chance also to pick up sales orders with sales billing, customer projects, as well as services along the way.
Yeah, and I love that flexibility to, and don't mistake, I think that there is certainly, this is tremendous power being added. It's not an or. I always had this conversation about and conversation, right? You're not taking anything away. What we're doing is adding functionality and adding the power that we all are familiar with traditionally in on-premise or in the private cloud of RAR. It creates this almost equivalency now in the public cloud, right? Without the customization. We know we can't do the customization, right?
That's a general topic, yes.
Yes, okay, great. Hey, one thing you mentioned, I can imagine people would be excited about this, and in a moment we'll ask Sheen to share with us, a view of it, but can you comment about, I'm sure, people would love to get this, but you mentioned something called expert configuration. What is that, and what does that mean to somebody who's interested in getting Universal RevRec today?
Yeah, I can comment on this one. So expert configuration is actually an option for SAP to allow a more controlled rollout. And then we also get further feedback. So in a nutshell, the customer would issue a ticket to SAP and ask SAP to active the Universal RevRec for them. And SAP would then perform all the expert configuration we need to active the Universal RevRec. Of course, before that, customer also need to select the relevant so-called scope items, because from the diagram you see that we do have integration scenarios already from sales from stock, customer project, service contracts, all those scope items for EBR should be activated. In addition, there are two scope items we need, that is so-called 3KK and 3VS for contract-based RevRec should also be activated. Yeah, once the expert configuration has been done, which means that in general Universal RevRec is activated, the customer can further fine-tune let's say the configuration to active the Universal RevRec on a more granularity level, for example, on the item level or based on the product level.
Got it. Okay. And so, it's really a way, the expert configuration is in a way getting some expert advice and expert support from your team and others to implement, but it also gives a way for customers to provide feedback, which I think is great. And I think it reminds me, Volkmar in particular, of what we used to do early on in RAR, right? Where we really wanted to get feedback and guide customers on, how to take best advantage of the solution, right?
Absolutely, that's the main reason we really want to get feedback. We want to understand our customers use the solution and also what, of course, gaps are. It's a big step to combine solution capabilities. That's why, especially in the public cloud, we take a very careful step forward in that direction.
Absolutely, and because the public cloud, you're impacting a lot of people all at once, not just one, right? It's not as though I have a private tenant, and just because you do something in my tenant, it could affect others in the public cloud. So I'm excited. So Sheen, why can you give the audience an insight into how this looks? Maybe a little demo.
Yeah, I would be happy to now do a small demo using the sales from stock scenarios. Maybe then I would start with share the screen. Okay. I would need to start with a privilege mode.
We're not seeing your screen quite yet.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So give me a second.
No worries. Yeah, Volkmar, while Shin is getting ready, is bringing his screen up. What I really love about this again is that flexibility and the power it adds to SAP's public cloud portfolio. So many times as we talk to customers, they have not just a single scenario, but multiple types of scenarios. Some of them are very straightforward, some of them are complex, and you don't want to rule out public cloud just because of that. And I think this adds so much more capability to that area.
I absolutely agree, and we have seen customers turning away from the public cloud because they come to certain edges, right? Or where simply they wanted to see more RevRec capabilities, not because the underlying solution is not robust enough. Actually, EBR is incredibly powerful when it comes to revenue recognition scenarios. If you look at what we support, for instance, in the context of projects, this is incredible. But then, depending on industries, then you will find, well, it would have been nice if we can add more capabilities, which of course we have in on-premise, and then as a result, because they couldn't find this yet in the public cloud, they have to turn away. And Universal RevRec, to our opinion, is really the step in the right direction to cater all these needs. Of course, there's more, let's say, enhancements necessary. That is the first step. There's more integration scenarios required, but I believe this is the right direction we want to go.
Yeah, and absolutely, and you made a great point, and then we'll cut right over to Sheen. The integrations, the other tremendous flexibility is with the SAP BTP or CIS platforms. There's so many options in terms of integrations now that you have extended to, using quote unquote EBRR as the front end, while taking advantage of the power of revenue accounting or CBRR in the background. So I see this as a real, another huge advantage for us in the marketplace. So Sheen, why don't you show us what's it look like?
Yeah, so you can see now I'm ready to give you a short live demo. So I will first of all showcase the sales from stock scenario. And the starting point is of course to create a sales order. So we first of all select a standard order type and select a demo sales organization and the demo predefined distribution channel, a division of 00. This is nothing special, and therefore we also define a sold to party. And so you can configure actually we have pre-configured two material that is relevant for Universal RevRec. And we have configured some information that you will see relevant for Universal RevRec. And of course, we will enter some quantities, which in the end we will do delivery, and you will see how the RevRec revenue would be recognized. Before I save it, just something that I would like to draw your attention is that in the pricing of the sales from stock, we are going to showcase multiple element arrangement capability, also called the famous revenue allocation. In the sales from stock, this is done via the pricing condition, so-called PSAM, stands for standalone selling price. And therefore, you will see that later this pricing condition would be converted into the so-called standalone selling price in revenue accounting or in country-based revenue accounting. So at this moment, the sales order setup has been done, so we can click create. So hopefully we will get, okay, let me enter a customer reference, and then we should be good to go. So I note down the sales order number, that is 18632. And at this moment, we can directly have a look at the so-called EBR contract. Remember that Fogmar already mentioned we create a revenue contract outside the sales order, and we would select, we can directly search the sales order, and you will see that this is the revenue contracts we created. This should be very familiar with you. If you are very familiar with revenue accounting, you will see that you have performance obligations, they have the price, and as mentioned, this is converted into, we now got the standalone selling price from PSAM pricing condition, and they perform the relevant allocation. So this is how the universal revenue contract looks like. And if you go to the detail of these performance obligations, you can have a look at the performance obligation. Yeah, so it tells you that you have an integration type of sales order integration. This is all preset. Okay, now let's coming back to the operational process. In the next step, we are going to create delivery and post goods issue, and you will see the revenue will be updated in real time. So I would go to shipping and create outbound delivery. Yeah, so this is the order. We already have the order there. And yeah, so let me have a look. Okay, I have to get out and select the sales stock and create the delivery. And the delivery is created. I would need to check the log, and then I notice down the delivery number. Okay, I have to take a note. And yeah, so in case I might forgot that one. And what we would need to do is go to the delivery and so proceed with so-called pick outbound delivery. I do not want to do complete goods issue, therefore I would do a partial delivery. So for example, I give a 5 piece, I give 1 piece here, and then I would click save. Yeah, then the would also need to save the picking, and hopefully I would then be able to post the goods issue. And once the goods issue is posted, and now you see the goods issue has been posted, I can go back to the Manage Revenue Contracts app, and I would expect to refresh it, and you will see that revenue accounting now calculate or receive the fulfillment information from sales from stock, and then we have already the revenue recognized. And the last step actually is the bidding process. So you can have a look that the bidding information is also updated in real time. So I would need to create a billing from the delivery, and this is the delivery we have just created several minutes ago, and I would create the billing. And if you look at the process flow, this is outbound delivery invoice, and when I click save, the last step is I still need to generate the billing document, which post to FI. Okay, so this journal entry is generated, and now if we look at the revenue contracts, you will see that the invoice amount has also been updated. It looks like that everything happens automatically. You don't need to do something else, but actually that's not the case, because if you look at the figures, the recognized revenue is correct. We post everything at the beginning to contract liability, and at the period end, we really need to correct the contract liability and the contract asset by the period activity. And this is the last step of this demo from operational perspective. So if you go back to home, we introduce a new process on new Fiori app, so-called Run Revenue Contracts, Run RevRec for revenue contracts. This will calculate the correct balance sheet position of the revenue contracts, and it always generates the posting entries directly. So as Tokma said, actually this is one-step program for all the process. So this is actually, you can schedule this job. For demo purpose, we do it online. So you do it also period based. I think it should be the other way around, because in a journal format. And what you may need to notice is that this Universal RevRec posting works directly on the concept of ledger. So instead of specifying the accounting principle, here we specify the ledger. Usually you do not assign a value to the revenue contracts, because in production you actually would run for all the revenue contracts. But here for demo purpose, of course, we specify specific revenue contracts, and we click schedule. This is a background job, and therefore, if we refresh that, job should be finished very quickly, because we only have one. And you can have a look at the log. The log says the relevant sales order item with the relevant accounting principle has been re-evaluated. And now if we look at the values, you will see that the liability and the contract asset has been offset with each other. So everything would be posted to the general ledger, and you will see, actually, you can also see that in the document flow, that all the documents that we generated, for example, what is the entries we posted, and what is entries actually originate from the operational document. So this goes to the end of my first demo, but I still want to show you another scenario that is a demo based on service contracts, because the sales from stock is a traditional or the famous event-based RevRec scenario. And if you would like in the cloud, you do have a process for revenue recognition over time, then you would use the integration scenario for service contract with Universal RevRec. So the demo process works very similar to sales from stock, but I will use a different operational business object. This is so-called service contracts. So for service contracts, it's very similar to sales from stock, sales order that I have. So to party for demo purpose, there are some default value we have already provided. And it's a very similar concept that in service contract, they call it product instead of a material. And they do have their own item category. And you can also configure by the customer that which product and which item category is relevant for the Universal RevRec, I would like to change the billing plan because currently the billing plan is per month. If we do not change the billing plan, actually we will not see a balance on the contract liability side. So therefore, I would now change it to yearly.
Okay.
And then for the second item, I would change it to yearly as well. In the billing plan part, change it to yearly. Okay. So the operational process for service contract is quite simple. So then I would release all items. And then the status of the item is changed to released, and then I save it. So this is also pre-configured. You can look at the service contracts. So if I go back to the home and starting from the menu, manage revenue contract, monitor revenue contract again, searching by the corresponding operational document of service contracts, you will see a similar one. But now if we look at the revenue contracts, we configure that the POB name is as such. There are already some quantity fulfilled, which is based on days. I didn't change it to the 1st of September, so you see the amount is much, it's quite small, but I don't think it matters too much. You will see that actually in this slide, in this page, you will see that the integration type tells you this is coming from service contracts. And you would be able now see that the merits of revenue accounting is that you can already do the forecast, revenue forecast, and we pre-generate all those so-called revenue schedule as we also have for the on-premise. So what I would like to mention is that for this scenario, the standard selling price is still required to be configured according to the Beer Plus rule.
Right.
Okay, now we would like to proceed with the billing. Billing is nothing exciting, but we would like to showcase that in order to complete the final step, we would like to do that. Okay, I would need to note down the service contract number. The billing in the cloud for service contract is slightly different. So we would need to create a so-called billing document request. And there I specify the service contract ID and perform the background job to create a billing document request. And a green light shows that 2 documents has been created respectively for 2 items. And we go back, it's just a billing document request. We still need to complete the billing as we have found goods issue. So we select them and create billing document. Yeah, the rest is very similar to what you have seen. Look at process flow. There's no journal entries. Therefore, we still need to complete the operational task and click the post billing document again. Now the billing document is generated, and we can check if the homework of revenue accounting is done correctly. And we see that, yes, the invoice amount is updated. Again, you see that actually the liability and the revenue currently does not reduce the contract liability, and this would be done by the last step. And actually, we'll see here the post revenue is also not yet posted because it's a time-based scenario. Therefore, we would need to go back to the famous app, RevRec, we just showcased a minute ago, create another job and enter the similar parameter again. And then we specify the revenue contract ID. And So schedule it. So the log says the corresponding service contract has been processed, and if now you refresh it, you will see that the liability is reduced and the amount of the revenue has been posted correctly. So this is another scenario for the service contract integration. Yeah, that's the two small demos I would like to share with you today.
No, that is great, Ian. I really, that is, you know, here's what I love, you know, everything that I saw, you don't see yourself moving from one application to another, and you know, we always used to talk about, well, now I'm going over here. It's all in one place and it's very seamless, and you can see how, and of course, with the more automated processes, it becomes that much, you know, more seamless, right? So
Yeah.
I really love both those scenarios, right?
Yeah, definitely. In the complete process, I think if you look at the demo, the only job that you need to start is the RevRec for the period end, because you anyway need to handle the balance sheet and also need to handle the recursive revenue recognition over time. So this is the only thing you need, but everything else would be seamlessly integrated in real time.
Yep, and you could have combination scenarios like this, and the fact that it's all, you know, all happening automatically is fantastic. Thank you. That's, you know, I am very excited to be able to show this and talk about it to clients, because I can see several of them that, you know, they have existing service contracts or they have simple subscription scenarios, and then they're adding more to it in the future. This is just, you know, I'm super excited about all this. So thank you. So with a couple of minutes left, Volkmar, Sheen, anything that you want to, you know, you know my famous term, the big so what. What would you sum up for everybody here to take away? What's the big, as I say, so what, if you will, or the big takeaway for Universal RevRec?
I would say the big takeaway is that really SAP is working on unifying our RevRec portfolio to make it easier for customers to choose and pick the level of support they need in revenue recognition. This is our big vision that, of course, will be in line with supporting the different scenarios. That's very important to us. We want to follow these integration scenarios, the needs that come out of the integration scenarios, but also where these different order types are combined, the solution will cater for these options. And it's a starting point, what you've seen with Shin, right? These two scenarios and the combination then. So we would advise to look at our roadmap and how this is evolving. Certainly there's more integration scenarios to come, and make this an even more powerful capability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the more scenarios and the more that's added, it just continues to reinforce the SAP message of public cloud is actually a very powerful solution, and there are less and less reasons why you shouldn't enable it. And I love the fact that, you know, what people don't see here also is that you've got pre-configured processes and scenarios and things set up. You weren't, it's all there, it's in there, which I think is fantastic. So we are at 10 o'clock, so I want to thank you both because I know it's getting late. There is one question here. So the question from the audience is, this is great, and I love the idea of you know, the expert configuration, but on the roadmap, when do you see Universal RevRec becoming more generally available?
I think the target would be certainly next year.
Okay.
It will depend on customer feedback. As I said earlier, there's there's more scenarios to come where we also have a push from the market to integrate this subscription billing. The BTP application subscription billing is a big wish from the market, and that's currently what Kin and the team is working on. And we assume that by next year we will also hopefully get rid of expert configuration needs.
Great. Well, yes, so that kind of expert configuration or expert, but I would say in wrapping up, RevRec, and you guys make this look so simple because the product is so powerful and so intuitive. But revenue recognition itself is not a simple process. There are a lot of topics to think about, whether it's something as simple as we saw standalone selling price and deciding on that, but also things like contract combinations. We mentioned Incoterms and what are the implications of Incoterms. We saw very simply the ability to do partial deliveries, but there's a lot of process behind the scenes and thought that has to go into it. So my net is, while quote unquote expert configuration will it'll become more generally available, what you want is experts to help you with thinking about your process, configuring the product, and helping you with that process. So I'm going to thank you both. I know it's late over there in Germany, so thank you both so much for your time. And I appreciate, the ability to show everybody Universal RevRec. There's going to be a lot more to come in this topic as we continue to build out scenarios in areas and industries that I think will surprise everyone. So Volkmar and Shin, thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to us.
All right, everybody, thank you from Bramasol and from SAP. We thank you all very, very much for attending. As I said, please feel free to follow up with me or anybody on this webinar. It will be available very shortly on the web, and we hope you really enjoyed it. So thank you, everybody, and make it a great day.
Unless